Tornado. How are you? And today, let's try to get deeper into the story with Betty Hill. Try to decode or come up with some ideas why this story might not be true, which I really don't think is made up. I definitely think, if anything, something has happened out of ordinary. And I do believe story from head to toe, so that's my take on that. But I do have some ideas that perhaps might scratch someone's head and said, okay, yeah, well, that could be possible, etc., etc. So one thing that I noticed about Betty Hill's interview, and I will leave the link below so you can see which interview this is. You might want to check it out yourself. And what happens in that interview is when interviewer is asking all these questions, I think at around 9 minutes and 57 seconds, I believe, the footage sort of cuts out. It slowly blends into new footage. So question is, what is missing in there that was cut out? I believe it happens a few times, so that's the reason I'm wondering what was actually cut out that could have been valuable information. Was it purposely cut out? Did it hold some serious information that cannot be exposed to the public? And another thing is, the possibility of hoax. As far as UFO world goes, it's endless. You could really easily fake stories. And if this was a fake story, then I'll give you an example what could have been the cause behind it. Simply, the interviewer and the hypnotist that supposedly put him under hypnosis could have been all in on it. Basically, that's the way to fake the whole story, because whoever is interviewing them would be very difficult to lie to that person straight out like that. And therefore, if they're both in on it, then perhaps Betty would be having a much easier time of making the story up, or they could even cut it out, some parts. Although the interview has only a few parts that are cut out, not everything. So, but again, were the hypnotist and the interviewer all in on it? That is the question that could be looked at seriously. And as you know, in a movie world, or even what I'm doing now, you can actually edit things out a lot and redo things if they don't sound right, etc., etc. So that could have been done until the interviews could have been done until they look right, until they got it perfect, and the person knows the story off by heart, and therefore they could easily look like they're flawless when they're being interviewed, because they know what the answer should be, what answer they're going to give next. They already know that answer. So that is one of the possibility. But so we don't know what exactly, like in any movie, we don't know exactly what's going on behind the closed doors. All you see is a footage that's maybe a cut that's about 20 seconds long, but the preparation that goes into this is probably astronomical, and how many times they did the take until they got it right in the movie industry. How many times they do that, we don't know. They do it until they get it right. So it's not a matter of how much time you have left, etc., etc. That's why they'll never announce the date ahead of time in case something goes wrong in between, or maybe some death could happen, or some fatal thing, or could stand on the way of the movie release. So they shouldn't really be telling the actual release of the movie in ahead of time when it's not even completed. So, because again, you never know what can happen on the set. So that's what I'm thinking. If the story was cooked up, could have been just simply rehearsed so many times until they get it right. And there are some cuts in that interview that, there are some things that are taken out of that interview that perhaps, they got stuck on it. But what they did get out of this is basically fame and popularity. And what better way to do something like, tell an alien story that perhaps some people will believe. And that's exactly what the problem is with this story that I'm thinking could be one of possibilities. It does, make you think, and if it could possibly be that way too. Simply rehearse the story so many times until the story sounds authentic, and the hypnotist could also be in on it. We don't know, but as you know, such world of hoax, fakery, it's very realistic. A lot of people profit from this. A lot of money has been made out of this, and that's why, especially when it comes to UFO world, it's hard to tell, because most of the time that these people tell their stories, they will have nothing to back it up with, and it's usually not necessary because it's simply they didn't have a camera at the time, and sort of makes sense in a way, but so usually most of the stories are just verbal evidence, and the same with Bob Lazar's story. You can't really tell whether he's telling the truth or not. So that's my opinion on this particular story that happened in 1961, and then there was a channel that came out in 2011 on YouTube that was called Ivan0135. A person uploaded a few alien authentic footage, supposedly that it's authentic. To my opinion, some of it looks real, especially the movements of aliens walking. The movements look really realistic to me. Like I said, it could have been a person that's anorexic because of their arms look extremely thin, and but there was 3 of them, and that's what sort of throws me off, that they can actually find 3 people that would be similar to each other, having the same body type. But one thing that Barney mentions in his hypnosis about aliens wearing black uniforms, and on Ivan's channel, that footage actually shows aliens wearing a black suits. So, now the question is, did that story derive from Barney and Betty Hills? That footage was created, give them an idea, whoever created it, did it come from Barney and Betty Hill story? That we don't know. That's the mystery about that. And how does Bob Lazar know about Zeta Reticuli in 1980s down the road later on? Why are all these people talking about Zeta Reticuli? And so again, is Ivan's channel like a real footage, or is it authentic, or is it just a made up thing? And again, even though we see the footage, we still cannot tell. It can be faked, and as you know, how many movies in between those days until 1980s were made. The movie industry has become sci-fi movies has become more mainstream and popular, and someone who's specializing in creating such props and things like that is probably getting really professional at it, and could easily be something like that could be faked, like animatronics or whatnot. Check out the channel, Ivan's channel, Ivan IVAN0135, and see for yourself what you think, if the footage is actually authentic or not. There are some scenes in that footage as far as crashed UFO goes, which kind of makes me think, is that actual footage from from Roswell, New Mexico. Was that the actual UFO that crashed over there? There is an alien lying on the ground. Looks like the UFO was damaged. So again, it makes you scratch your head. But then again, that all of information could have been taken out of Barney and Betty Hill story and Roswell, New Mexico, and then made into a footage that would kind of make you think the whole thing is authentic, when really it was just based on those stories. Those aliens were created from those stories. But if it's not, then we are probably presented to some race of aliens and that actually exist, that has come and visit us. But if Barney and Betty Hill story is not a made-up story, and of course the same with Bob Lazar, but like I said, any of those kind of stories can be rehearsed, and although like Bob Lazar's story, for instance, a lot of this interview that he goes through are basically people that don't know Bob Lazar, like Joe Rogan, for instance, his latest interview with Bob Lazar, and I'm 100% they don't know each other personally. So when he's interviewing Bob Lazar, Bob Lazar has to think fast what's he gonna say. So processing so much information and able to lie on the spot flawlessly without showing any unusual behavior, it's extremely difficult. And exact same thing goes for Betty Hill. Old lady at her age, processing so much information at once. Her brain, I'm not sure it can take it. So she's probably saying the truth. But the question is, was this all made up? Like I said, things can be rehearsed until they look right. Again, you don't want to know what's going on behind the scenes of any movie, and how many times they had to do something until they got it right, or perfect. So that's one possibility behind Barney and Betty Hill's story. Unless you have a different opinion, you please comment below if you think there's something else in the story that I'm missing or whatnot, that I'm leaving out. But I pretty much saw a lot of the interview, and the thing is, it just seems very hardcore to be actually having straight out such experience with aliens in such ridiculous way, like talking to them and communicating with them and asking them where they're from. So that's why this whole thing sounds a bit ridiculous. And usually the golden rule is, if anything sounds unnatural or ridiculous, most likely it's not true. And maybe aliens even know that, and that's why they have no problem showing themselves to us, because who's gonna believe you, right? Technically Betty Hill and Barney Hill and Bob Lazar should have been rock stars, a lot more famous than they are now if the story was true. But then again, like I said, they don't have a real backup of evidence of any kind, and therefore they're just some sort of myth or something like that, a story that you would like to get excited about, but you can't, because you don't know if they're telling you truth or not. And that's what the problem is with UFO scene, because there is not enough evidence, and usually it's always like that. And hopefully we'll get to some serious evidence, and you can check my video about UFO real UFO footage, and I post a couple of videos. I talk about how they are faking UFO videos with what kind of software they're using and so forth. And I did put a couple of links below, and of course the UFO footage that I think it's authentic. And I explain why too. So if you like to check that out, And there's also another footage as far as orbs goes. And I don't know if you know, but I'm also a witness of UFO orb phenomena. And if you go to my blog, blogtornado.com, you can check a UFO section, and the article there is called UFO orb phenomena. And I basically talk about what happened when I saw orbs. And therefore, it's only a verbal evidence, and that's why I left a link below from Orbs from Massachusetts, which blows my story away, and it's also on tape. It's also on YouTube. It's actually been videotaped, but it's not just ordinary orb footage, because in this case, if you compare my story to the actual footage, you'll notice they have similar things like changing colors to orange, which is very common. It's now should be now on the open that orbs usually like to display orange colors, and not green and not blue or any kind of other colors. Maybe red or white. Usually white to orange is what back and forth you might right away identify that could be a real orb footage, and multiply. Usually there's one orb and then two more orbs, or one orb might come out of that orb. So they're able to multiply. So you can't do that with drones or anything like that. So that's another thing that, and also they like to kind of fly in straight formation sometimes. Nothing like that has a flight pattern like a fly or something that could be insect of some sort. This has a totally straight pattern of flying, hovering in the air without making any noise. And that's why I suggest check out the footage from Western Massachusetts. It also has a message in there, and I think it's 100% authentic from my experience with orbs. There's about 3 or 4 things that are very similar, and how can that be? This person doesn't know me, I don't know them, and this kind of things also, like Phoenix lights, for instance, Phoenix, Arizona. If you heard the story about the lights, the orbs in the sky, there was 3, and that's what happened to me too. I saw 3 lights like that. And when there are 3, usually there's 3, but you might see more. They might come out in more groups or fleets, whatever, and so that's something to check out. But that, I think personally, there's a message in there that's really, it's what grabs my attention. They're communicating with us. Anything that flies in some sort of a perfectly symmetrical pattern, it tells you it's not something that has a insect sort of behavior, a random behavior. It's symmetrical, like something we would do. So I talk about, check out my orbs video. I talk about our orbs watching us, UFO orbs watching us, or UFO orb phenomena. And I talk about orbs and why are they here, and we need to be more aware of these things, raise the awareness. It's very strange and out of ordinary, to say the least. What are they doing here? What's their purpose? That is the big question behind the orbs. It's just something so out of ordinary and it's real, and that's what makes it all much more interesting. And like I said, I saw it myself. So that's pretty much all that I like to talk about as far as Betty Hill goes. Like I said, just to recap, this whole thing could be staged, could be rehearsed, just like they do in a movie. They need to rehearse things before they get it right, and perhaps that's what they did. I'm not saying they did, but it could be done if that was the way they went about doing it. Simply just have all the people that are in the story, basically have them in on it, be part of the story without public knowing it. But I don't want to discredit the story in any kind of way. I cannot tell for sure. Obviously, that's the magical thing about UFO scenery. Either way you turn the story around, you're never right about it. And so that's why I really try hard, at Blog Tornado here in this channel to get deeper into getting some truth out of this, and see who might be telling the truth. And, I'm not saying this is true, or I'm saying this is true. I'm not on that side, and I'm not on that side. Okay, I can never. It's very difficult to be on one side completely and not say that the other side is wrong or right, is wrong. And that's what's so mysterious about this whole scenery with UFO. And I would encourage you to follow me more and more, because I'm trying to get more and more information from different parts of documentaries that perhaps these people are not related to each other at all, but how they could be related, and what's going on with Bob Lazar, what's going on with this story with Betty Hill, Barney Hill. But I'm getting closer and closer to the truth, and the closest to the truth I would think right now is $1 American bill, the Illuminati symbol. Like I explained what that is if you check out my video, and the connection with orbs, because they're illuminating. The symbol simply shows illuminating light, and supposedly this force is in power over the government. And again, the pyramid, as you can see on the American dollar bill, it's basically levitating in the air like orbs do. And supposedly the all-seeing eye, and I believe that orbs are actually watching us here on this planet. And for what reason, I don't know, for experiment reasons or for whatever reasons. And that sort of makes sense logically, it could make sense. And that's the reason, again, that's the motive behind Blog Tornado, to get to some common sense, some logic. Even if it's not right, we won't be able to tell, but it sounds logical. And that's what the whole purpose of this channel is. Anyways, if you stayed all the way up until now, I would like to thank you very much. And please do come back to see what's going on. And I post videos every day, every second day, every third day. Lately been posting every day. And I'll try to keep that up. It's just a matter of getting information out there and kind of connect the dots. Like Ike said, connecting the dots, and that's really the purpose of this channel, to get some common sense, some logic, some truth by connecting the dots. And YouTube is full of, of such documentations, such as this UFO stories, that all somebody needs to do is connect the dots. And that's the purpose of Blog Tornado. So if you have something to comment, please leave it below, and tell me if you see something strange in the sky that you think it could be UFO or whatnot. And I would really appreciate that. And of course, if you want to get these videos right on your desktop, I would say you subscribe here at the bottom right, somewhere here, or give it a thumbs up at least. That would be super great, of course. And I will see you next time, and probably anytime you come back here, there will be a new video, and I will talk a little bit more, summarize things, what happened so far, so you know where I am at by watching all these documentaries and try to absorb all this knowledge about UFO world so far. So thank you very much, and please come back, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Peace. Cheers. Thank you.